She was just another face in the background, apron tied tight around her waist, chopping onions in the mess hall of a forward operating base deep in hostile territory. To the men who passed by, she was simply the cook, the quiet woman who made sure they had warm meals before missions and steaming coffee after. But behind her calm demeanor lay years of training that almost no one suspected. She had joined the Navy years earlier, not to serve food, but to serve on the front lines. Injuries and politics had shuffled her into support roles, yet her instincts and discipline remained razor-sharp. That night, as she stirred a pot of stew, destiny came knocking in a way no one could have foreseen. The base was small, manned by a handful of SEALs running covert surveillance in a war-torn region. She admired them from a distance, warriors who carried themselves with the kind of confidence only hard combat breeds. They thought she was ordinary, harmless, someone who lived in the shadows of their dangerous assignments. But her story was about to shatter their assumptions. The roar of distant gunfire cracked through the night, followed by an unnatural silence. When she rushed out from the hall, she realized something had gone terribly wrong. Through the haze of smoke and the sound of boots on gravel, she caught sight of armed men dragging the SEALs, blindfolded and bound, into waiting trucks. Her heart pounded. She was unarmed, alone, the so-called cook. But the fire within her refused to let her freeze. Memories of training in survival, evasion, and hand-to-hand combat surged back. She knew she had a choice: hide and live, or fight and risk it all. She tightened her fists and decided her days of blending into the background were over. She would not let her team vanish into the night. Moving with the kind of precision only drilled soldiers knew, she slipped back inside the hall. Hidden beneath flour sacks was a compact rifle she kept for emergencies, something no one but her knew about. She loaded it quickly, her hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She whispered to herself that this wasn't about glory, it was about survival, hers and theirs. She wasn't just a cook anymore. She was about to become the last line of defense. With silent determination, she stepped back into the smoky darkness and began to track the convoy that had stolen her brothers in arms. The trail was easy enough to follow. Tire marks in the dirt, broken branches, the faint smell of fuel. She moved like a shadow, unseen, unheard, guided by instincts she had long suppressed. Every few minutes, she checked her surroundings, ears sharp to the crack of twigs or the rustle of leaves. Hours passed before she reached a hidden encampment where the SEALs were tied to poles, their captors circling like vultures. Rage tightened her jaw. She would have to be smart. A full assault was suicide, but a series of calculated strikes could shift the balance. It was time to remind herself of who she once was. As the first guard wandered too close, she struck. A silent takedown, swift and precise, left him on the ground. She dragged his body into the shadows and took his knife. Another guard fell moments later, throat silenced before he could cry out. One by one, she carved a path through the enemy, each move fueled by her refusal to accept defeat. She wasn't invincible. She bled, stumbled, and nearly exposed herself more than once. But her resolve pushed her beyond fear. By the time dawn began to break, the captors realized they were being hunted, and they were terrified. Gunfire finally erupted, a chaotic dance of muzzle flashes and shouts in the early light. She ducked behind cover, firing back with deadly precision. For every bullet that whizzed past, she answered with one that found its mark. She wasn't reckless. She was disciplined, deliberate, the embodiment of controlled fury. The SEALs, still bound, could only watch in disbelief as the cook they had underestimated fought like a storm unleashed. Her courage lit a spark in them. They strained against their bonds, urging her silently, giving her the strength to push harder. After what felt like an eternity, silence settled over the camp. Smoke curled upward from smoldering fires and bodies littered the ground. She limped to the poles, knife in hand, and cut the SEALs free. Their eyes met hers, not with pity or surprise, but with respect. She had done what few could imagine. Alone she had turned the tide. As the men stood, stretching sore limbs, one of them placed a hand on her shoulder. "You saved us," he said simply. She nodded, too exhausted for words, but inside a quiet pride bloomed. She had never needed recognition, only the satisfaction of knowing she had fought back when it mattered. The journey back to the base was grueling. Wounded, weary, but unbroken, the group moved together under her guidance. She had become their shield, their leader, even if only for that night. The SEALs, usually the protectors, now looked at her as an equal, someone forged from the same steel as themselves. By the time they reached safety, whispers of her actions had already spread. Soldiers who once saw her as a cook now regarded her with awe. She had rewritten her place in their story with blood, sweat, and courage. In the days that followed, she returned to the mess hall, apron once again tied around her waist. She still cooked meals, still chopped onions, still stirred pots, but everyone knew now that she was more than her role suggested. The men who ate her food didn't just thank her for the meal, they thanked her for her bravery. And though she smiled humbly, she carried within her the memory of the night when she alone stood against the darkness. Her story traveled beyond the base, whispered in barracks and told around fires. Some said she was lucky, others said she was blessed, but all agreed she was extraordinary. She embodied the lesson that strength often hides in unexpected places, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. She proved that courage isn't about titles or ranks, but about refusing to surrender when the world demands it. As for her, she never sought glory. Her satisfaction came from knowing she had lived true to her oath, even if no one had expected it of her. She had been underestimated, dismissed, overlooked, but when her team needed her most, she rose and fought back. And in doing so, she reminded everyone that even in the quietest corners of war, heroes can be found. This tale is not just about one woman, but about all those hidden warriors among us, people whose strength remains unseen until adversity calls it forth. It is about resilience, loyalty, and the refusal to bow to fear. It is about the fire inside every human heart, waiting for the chance to burn bright against the darkest night. If this story moved you, share it with those who believe in courage, resilience, and the power of the human spirit. Let it remind us all that heroes can rise from anywhere, even from the mess hall. And for more powerful stories like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to African FolkTales, where legends live on and courage never dies.